talk about risk management, but from a slightly different angle. So you've had an interesting past. You've been in a lot of cool places, some of them quite hot.
In many respects.
What's your thoughts about what you've encountered and experienced in the military, and how we might benefit from your look at risk management from a different angle?
Well, I suppose in all human activity that there's a crossover, and military activity is human activity. Of course, the consequences in the military of getting a risk wrong means losing people's lives, or worse still, losing your country. But on the other hand, currently with the global financial crisis, people's lives could be put at risk by financial decisions, and certainly countries are losing their independence as much as they were if they'd been conquered. And that's what we're seeing within the Eurozone. And that's one of the complaints in places like the Republic of Ireland. They're complaining of economic imperialism. But what's the choice?
Right. And I guess the Greeks might, by extension, or Portuguese, same spot. In the field or operationally, is there lessons or other lessons that we could learn from the military? Well,
I think that in terms of, I spent half my career with the Special Air Service, our Special Forces in the UK, and what I was doing with the Special Forces differed from when I was leading a large infantry organisation. I commanded the Royal Irish Regiment during the Second Gulf War. With Special Forces, the difference is that it's a bit like being a risk manager. You look at a problem set, the government tells you what the desired outcome would look like, and you have to do a risk analysis against the cost benefits of doing something. And things like, I can remember in the modern age, I suppose some of the most sensitive thing prior to what's happening obviously in the Middle East was, after the Bosnian War, we found ourselves engaged in arresting persons indicted for war crimes.
Right.
Sometimes the decision to arrest those individuals was a marginal one, because the question would be, by arresting this person in these circumstances, are you making things worse? Well, what we ultimately found was that we were being oversensitive. I can remember setting up the arrest of the first elected politician in Republic Srpska. We expected there to be a huge backlash, but there wasn't. And certainly when some of the more high-profile generals were arrested, we expected a backlash, and there wasn't. So sometimes the lesson is that bold action is the way forward. But in the end of the day, it's a risk-cost analysis. What you don't want to do is make things worse. Obviously, in the field, leading a large military organisation, it's different, because in combat, the potential is at some cost, and taking risk, you've got to achieve the mission. And so one's less hampered by these sort of decisions. It's simply about doing as you're told.
Doing as you're told. There's been a lot of debate in our industry about corporate governance and governance in general, and the way that we communicate between different layers in financial organizations and between regulatory bodies and people out in the field. What lessons or what similarities might we observe when we're talking about the military, or lessons that you learned in the military?
Well, I think ultimately the trick is to achieve effectiveness and efficiency. In the military, we talk about the what's known as the Boyd cycle. It was invented by a guy called General Boyd, or Colonel Boyd, I should say, which is the observation, orientation, decision, then acting. And that's how armies work. You see what's happened, you orientate yourself and your organisation to it, you decide what you're going to do, and you act. But the trick is ultimately to be leading the dance, so as to be ahead of the Boyd cycle and make others follow your decision action cycle. And that's how you win wars. It's about defeating the opposition's will to succeed. And so ultimately it's about creating a high tempo of operations that you decide. And if you are following and you realise you're following, the trick is to find some way to break that cycle and leap ahead. And that needs leadership, and that needs foresight, and it needs communication. I studied economics at Queen's University Belfast, and the first tutorial that I had as a 18-year-old student was quite a shock, because my economics tutor in Belfast explained to be an economist, we had to understand one thing, that money doesn't exist. It was just an idea.
There's a start.
Pieces of paper with pictures of the Queen you could exchange for Guinness, or lumps of yellow metal, or hard pieces of carbon that we exchange and change the price of every day. But it doesn't exist per se. So it's all about faith and belief.
Indeed.
And so it's about creating that confidence and mutuality amongst organisations. And in some respects, what is leadership in the field? What is tribalism? It's an idea. And people follow, how do you become a general? Well, a group of people decide that you are their general, and you behave in a way of a general. So again, it's an idea as well.
I noticed in your bio that you were initially deployed in Berlin during the Cold War period, and yet here we are some years later, and we're back in Berlin again, and we're talking about the fate of the Euro bloc.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
Well, I think that the euro was a nice idea. I take the view, and did at the time, that am I surprised that the Republic of Ireland hadn't balanced its books? No. Am I the only person who didn't actually believe that the Greeks had balanced their book? And the same with Portugal and other countries in the region. Again, it comes down to what we have, in my view, is a collision between 20th century socialism and 21st century fiscal reality. It's a break in this business of getting stuff without doing anything for it. Expectation of, and the United Kingdom, for instance, has stopped being a nation. It's become a welfare state. But the problem with being a welfare state and not a nation anymore is it's not producing the wealth with which to distribute the welfare.
Right.
And when the tap starts running dry,
how do you decide?
Many of the Central and Southern American countries aren't in the recession. Turkey's the same. They're manufacturing, they're changing their societies, they're working hard, they're producing goods and services, and they're producing stuff that people want. And in that way, they're prospering. I think the rest of us have to learn that lesson.
Very good. Thank you very much. Excellent.